serious the Patriots were when it came to spending in free agency. We mentioned that earlier. One more clip from Bill Belichick yesterday talking about that process of going all in like never before. Here's the question he was asked and how he went about answering it.
The way you spent on offense, is that an indication that you feel like what you surrounded Cam with last year wasn't enough to highlight what Cam brought to the table?
Well, again, the process this offseason was to, as it always is, to try to improve the team and to try to do everything we can to make ourselves as competitive as we can this year, which is what we try to do every year. So, we had several years in free agency where we were, one of the least cash spending teams in the league, and then this year that changed and balanced it off. And so that's really what you have in the NFL. Teams that don't spend, then spend. Teams that spend, then there are years when they don't spend. So it averages out over a period of time, and that's part of the averaging process came this year. But ultimately, we're trying to, again, do what we can to improve the team like we always do every year, and that's what we're going to continue to do as we work through the draft process and other team building opportunities that may or may not come along during the season, but I'm sure there'll be others somewhere along the line, and we'll evaluate those when they present themselves.
Peter, he talks about the averaging process. What's the most intriguing about this? They've never been part of the averaging process on the spend side. Robert Kraft told you a few weeks back, those were the teams they made fun of in the past. The teams that went out and spent, knowing that they were overpaying for guys who were not going to deliver that championship that teams delude themselves into thinking they're going to buy in free agency. But this year they had to do it because the cupboard was otherwise too bare from a talent standpoint, and they had the cash and the cap space because of what happened with the pandemic, driving the salary cap down. Patriots were in a spot where need and opportunity came together, and we saw them do something we've never seen them do.
Look, the thing about the Patriots that has been unique over the years is that Tom Brady has been able to be a deodorant to hide a lot of faults on this team. And they don't have that deodorant anymore. They don't have that guy who's going to be able to win when your talent is down some. So now, obviously, after last year when they had, in my opinion, the worst collection of skilled players of all 32 teams in the NFL, they woke up and they basically said, okay, let's go out and spend $96 million guaranteed, or whatever the guaranteed number is incredible. And let's go spend, I think, $175 million on signing bonuses, and all that. I just think, Mike, that Bill Belichick, understands now that you're not going to be able to win unless you have some significant weaponry on your offense. You've got to get to the NFL in 2021. And the last couple of years, you saw it starting with Brady late in the 19 season, and in that playoff loss to Tennessee, they were awful at the skill positions. And now what you're seeing, especially, exclamation point, the retirement of Julian Edelman. He can't save them now either. So, it's time to get with the program and get with 2021 football and get enough weapons to really help your quarterback. Now we're going to see, is Cam Newton any good? He wasn't last year. What was the reason? Weaponry, COVID, we don't know, but he wasn't good last year. So now we're going to get to see if Cam Newton can be salvaged with a bunch of good weapons around him.
Edelman, one of the rare successes from the standpoint of drafting and developing. And I think the developing part of it doesn't get mentioned enough, Peter, because it's not like they are selecting players who are otherwise not on anyone else's board. These guys that they're picking would have been picked by someone else at some point. It's picking the guy maybe at the wrong spot, but then when he's in the building, it's not developing him. I'd love to know the story behind that. Does Belichick get too impatient with young guys? They make too many mistakes. I'd rather just have the veteran here. We don't trust the young guy. He never has that breakthrough moment, but they just don't develop the young skill position guys either. And that's one of the reasons Edelman stands out so clearly, because they developed the hell out of Julian Edelman, a college quarterback who converted to receiver and became a Super Bowl MVP.
You know, I'm going to write something in my column Monday about, sort of the genius of Julian Edelman and how Julian Edelman happened in the first place. Mike, did you know that when I was talking to him after he won the MVP a couple of years, 3 years ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago, after he won the MVP in the Super Bowl, he told me that, had the football thing not worked out. I mean, first of all, his head coach at Kent State wanted him to go to Canada to play football in Canada and compete for a job as a quarterback in Canada. And he basically said, hey, listen, I want to be a pro football player, but I want to play in the NFL. I never dreamed of playing in the CFL. Not that there's anything wrong with the CFL, but I want to try to make the NFL. And of all the teams that worked him out that year, it was really, really interesting because he was worked out as a safety, as a nickel, and also as a return man, as well as a receiver. And that year, that off season, he worked with Charlie Fry, who was then a quarterback on the Cleveland Browns. He worked with Charlie Fry, learning the receiver position. But you talk about, how he was helped on that team. And here's what I'm told. When he got there, basically, Tom Brady, when you get to the Patriots, you've been drafted by the Patriots, or, you're on the team, Brady will basically start working with you until he senses that you're not working hard, and you're not going to be a guy who I'm going to be able to rely on. But when that happened with Julian Edelman, that was the key to him, because Tom Brady saw how hard this guy worked, and he would stay after and after and after. And so those are the reasons why guys succeed, in my opinion, in New England. You're going to get a chance. And as a receiver, you're going to get a chance. But when the guy who basically is in charge of determining, honestly, whether you're going to make it or not, if he sees the desire, the drive, the work ethic, he's going to beat you into the ground to make it work with you. Same thing happened when Chris Hogan went there as a free agent. So those are the kind of things that happened in New England. Now, we'll see what happens with the tight ends this year with Cam Newton and how much they're able to work together. And a lot of it too, Mike, is what are they going to be allowed to do in this offseason? And I think that's going to be really important. In New England, those guys used to get together all the time anyway. And now, if they have organized workouts or whatever it is, they're going to have to find a way to get together this offseason.
We're going to be talking about that in the next segment. Before we take our break, though, you mentioned Julian Edelman experimenting at the nickel corner position. I still remember clearly him playing the slot against the Ravens in a playoff game once upon a time and covering Anquan Boldin, or more accurately, trying to cover Anquan Boldin. Edelman picked the right position ultimately to play other than quarterback in the NFL because it wasn't working at defensive back, even though he took 27 snaps out of 73 in that AFC Championship game that the Patriots ultimately won over the Ravens to cap the 2011 season.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.